Here's another key term that we see very frequently in our study of algebra. This term is reciprocal. We see this all the time when we're working with fractions, especially when we're tasked with attempting to divide by a fraction when we're isolating a variable. We find ourselves consistently using the reciprocal when we're tasked with dividing essentially by a fraction, because it's kind of difficult to divide by a fraction. We need to use a reciprocal in order to do that. The main part of the reciprocal that I think is helpful is the illustration, image, and mnemonic section. We use a rhyme mnemonic. We'll get to that in a second. But first, we should focus on the definition of reciprocal, which is kind of a funky definition. It's more or less an example, but it reads, if A is over B as a fraction, so if we have the letter A over B, then B over A is the reciprocal. Little typo here, it should say then B over A is the reciprocal. The product of any number and its reciprocal is 1. So if we multiply any number by its reciprocal, that is 1. But the main thing to consider here is that with a fraction, any fraction, such as A over B, the reciprocal is that fraction flipped upside down. A over B becomes B over A. The fraction is flipped upside down. The B and the A change position. This is where we get our rhyme mnemonic. In order to remember what the term reciprocal means, I always tell my students to use that rhyme mnemonic: reciprocal, refliprical. Refliprical. When we have a fraction, in order to find the reciprocal, we flip that fraction. If we flip that fraction, we will get the reciprocal. Reciprocal, refliprical. Our brains love a good rhyme. So reciprocal, refliprical, I promise you, you might hate me after it because it'll constantly be in your head, but you will never forget what a reciprocal is in math. Some examples down here. In the examples section, we have 3 over 5 and 5 over 3. 1 over 2 and 2. We have to remember that 2 essentially as a fraction is 2 over 1. 3 over 1 and 1/3. Something like 6/7 and 7/6 would be the reciprocal or the refliprical. Any fraction where you can flip it on its head, then you have a reciprocal. Now, it's important to recognize some non-examples of reciprocals, right? So, over here, we have some examples of things that are not reciprocals. 3 over 5 and negative 5 over 3. Even though we have 3 over 5 and 5 over 3 would technically be the reciprocal, because we have this negative sign, it is not a reciprocal. Similarly, general opposite numbers, 1/2 and negative 1/2. Those are actually literal opposite numbers. They are not reciprocals. So up here, we're very close, because 3 over 5 and 5 over 3 would be reciprocals, but because we have this negative sign here, 3 over 5 and negative 5 over 3, those aren't reciprocal reflipricals. So hopefully this helps you understand a little bit about what that term reciprocal means. Remember, reciprocal, refliprical.